you've got to have that. And I had people that really, really stood around me, but each way had its own thing going. But I sat up there and it was almost like a relief when I heard 33 months because they wanted 51 months and 33. And then I was able to do what they call programming in prison, and I could get some time off for that. Yeah. And then they give you good time. They don't have parole in federal prison. So, but I did get out after 10 months, and then I went to, home confinement, and the rest is, I'm here.
So I want to ask, I don't want to dwell on negativity too much. And I do want to talk about your entrepreneurship. But before I do that, like, I do want to ask because people listening to this are probably curious, like, when we think of prison, like, people who've never been there, we often think of, the violence, the sexual assault, the solitary confinement, all the terrible things that we associate with prison, which I believe there's like a reality that matches that. But at the same time, like, what was your own mentality and expectation going into how that time would be? And how did your time in prison actually match up to that expectation?
Yeah, thank you. You don't know. You wonder all of those things. I went to a federal prison camp, then people will say, oh, you went to a country club. And I just said, that's no country club that I ever know of. I've never been to a country club like that. I mean, your freedom is gone. Prison is for punishment. It's not for rehabilitation, even though we think
at least in our society,
In our society, and that's the way it is. And there's a lot of reform that needs to be done around all of it. And we don't have the time to talk about that. But I had a lot of fear because you don't know. I mean, one minute I'm going and my wife and son are dropping me off and I had a Chick-fil-A sandwich and I self-reported. And the next minute I get in and I report there and one of the corrections officers picks me up and I said, how are you? And he looks over and I'm not speaking to you. I didn't talk to you. You basically don't talk to me. And it wasn't whether that was a joke or not, which I didn't take it that way. I was like, wow, your world changed. And then everything else changed within it. But it is about punishment. I don't want to go back. It punished me enough. I get it. And I think there is reform that way with most people. But again, our system is created to have recidivism, not to have go back. That's another topic. But was I afraid of it? Yeah. Did violence happen in prison camps? Absolutely. Were there sexual things going on? I didn't see it, but I'm sure there was. But was I afraid of all that? Sure. Going in, everyone is. Because you don't know what you're going to. And people in prison camps are brought down. I mean, they work themselves down from, different types of prisons, mediums, lows, to that stuff as they're going out. That's the process.
And you were locked up with like other sort of minimum level security,
a lot of
kind of prisoners?
Mostly drug charges, white collar. That's who we're supposed to be. But again, you don't know what else they did.
But it's still prison.
It's prison.
It's still prison. There's no sugarcoating that. So in your time there so obviously it sounds like the impression I get is that you took accountability for the business errors that led to your conviction, and you were, prepared, you steeled yourself for this sentence. But during your time there, were there any kind of moments or any gradual thought processes that really changed your outlook on life? Like describe, like maybe it was a day in prison or a memory in particular, or maybe it was a series of gradual moments that built up to you having like changing your perspective on life coming out.
I'll tell you, the whole thing is I really had a difficult time getting adjusted because you go into prison and shame really grips you a lot of times. And it did for me anyway. It doesn't everybody necessarily, but you really want to find a routine. And the quicker you can get to a routine, the better it's going to be. Now, I was very fortunate. I had a lot of visits on the weekend. My wife could come, my mom, my sister, other family members, even friends could come. But one thing that struck me is you're always looking at time. You are serving time. And there's two instances I'll give you. A story was, I remember when I first got there, you would see guys either, kind of laying in the bed, crawled up in more like a fetal position with a sheet over their head when we weren't working, because we were at a camp where we worked. And you had jobs and you're up every morning and you're working through things and doing all the stuff and then you do everything. But I remember looking at that. Other guys would work out all the time. And when I say all the time, between work, of course, other guys are reading. Other people are writing stuff for what they do. I mean, all kinds of things. But I'll never forget one guy said, look, you don't want to come in here looking at how another person is serving their time. You do your time, let them do their time. And it wasn't like I was ever trying to, go say, hey, you shouldn't do this. But that stuck with me because prison is a microcosm of what's going on here. The same thing that goes on in prison, the same thing here. People, whatever you wanted in prison, unfortunately, you could get it in prison. The same thing you get out here. You wanted it in there, you could get it. And I'm not saying that it happened all the time, but there's still criminal activity going on in prison, unfortunately. It's not always the prisoners that are doing that.